First, could you please introduce yourself? What's your name and what do you do?
My name's Elora. I'm from Ibuku Studio in Bali, and we design castles out of grass. No, we design bamboo structures and also structures from many other materials, mostly in Bali, but more and more around the world for the past 12 years now.
Yeah, I think castle is quite the right word to describe your works. It looks cool. And yeah, that can be the bridge to our next questions. Like when you first make you are famous because of the buildings you made from bamboo. And in green school and in the Kila in Bambu Indah, all are like castle, I think. And it looks like uh, it comes from a fairy tale world. Where did that idea come from? Where's that inspiration comes from?
Well, we're always looking for moments of wonder and joy. And so sometimes that connects with a sense of the magical of a fairy tale. But also, we just keep trying to remember that we're human and that we're inside human bodies and that we're in a natural landscape. And we want to reconnect the two. Because I think something about culture has really separated us people from the rest of nature, because we're part of nature. And so when we stand on the edge of a riverbank, for example, on the edge of the Ayong River here, and we have the chance to add something to the beautiful terraces of the land, what we're really asking ourselves is what feels like it would belong here and what would help make me feel like I can belong here. And we start to add the layers that we need to protect ourselves. So we might wrap something around us to make us feel cozy in a bed. That might be a basket shape. And then the other layers of practical protection that we need. And those layers end up becoming a sculpture. I think people might often imagine that we designed a sculptural form and that's the building, but really we design it from the inside out, from what the people who will be inside it, what we think that we wish for, what they wish for around them. So it grows that way.
Yeah, I think uh, it's a deep insight because usually, especially as a designer, we always start by like asking the first question: what people need, what the market needs, especially market, not people, and not people as a human or a person, but it it is full of like commercial artificial need, but you can take the more personal approach, more deeper connection from uh, us as a human to nature. I think that's amazing, and it must be hard, isn't it, when it is the first time you want to make your first structure out of bamboo. I mean, it's not like the industrially made materials like steels or concrete or others. It is very natural, very organic, and they have different sizes. How do you first? Can you tell us share us about the first process, the first time you make your first building? What are the challenges?
Well, well, for me, I'm part of a team, so it wasn't the pressure on me to design my first building. It wasn't focused that way. I got to join a team that had already created the Green School in Bali, that amazing campus. I was inspired by that and just wanted a chance to be part of it. I didn't go to architecture school, so I didn't have the training to make me aware of how difficult it was to create a building. So I didn't have that that comprehension, that healthy fear. And there were already many projects in process. So I had the chance to come in and to look where I could add value, to see where I could bridge between our clients' wishes and dreams and the realities of the material, And so I really started out in the interiors. One of the first homes at Green Village, the bones of it were already planned. The structure was already planned. And one of the first things I did was I took out walls. I said, actually, why are we breaking up the space like this? What if we don't have the dressing room partitioned from the bedroom? So I started pulling out things, not pulling them out, pulling them out of the plans, and suggesting, what if we do less? What if we use paper instead of a solid wall for a screen? And pulling other things that I'd seen in the world, Japanese paper walls. In a different project, the team had done a basket for a reception at Bamboo actually. And I said, what if we put the bed inside of a basket instead of inside of a room that feels more like a box? So I got to play that way. Long before I was really trying to think of what the entire structure should be.
Yeah, that's quite an unorthodox mindset, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like us.
And that was confidence building, because when I got to do it on site, I didn't have to do it on paper, on the drawings, or in the 3D. And so without having the training to understand those things, I was able to participate and see the reality of it, work directly with the craftsmen and see, okay, this is working. My intuition on it was good. And see the reactions that way. And then you just have to expand the scale. So the next time when we were just standing on the land saying, what should we build? It just seemed like the same process, but on a bigger scale. Now you have to think about the whole site, not just the room.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And because you work directly with the craftsmen, you have to communicate very intensely with them, right? And there
Yeah.
must be so many people helping on site. But how do you? I'm curious because well, you are not local Balinese people, and how do you communicate with them, and how do you build strong bond in your team despite like language barrier or cultural differences?
Bisa bahasa Indonesia, bisa bahasa Bali, beda-beda.
Oh, sudah bisa bahasa Indonesia. Yeah, so yeah, I'm curious, how do you build the strong team with the local craftsmen, and how do you communicate with them to build your imagination, to realize your
Well,
imagination?
sebab saya besar di Bali, like growing up here, I just already felt like I'd had some practice there. I felt like I had a good rapport with sharing my ideas. When I was a little girl here, I had the idea that I wanted a fairy costume. And instead of taking me to some supermarket to buy me a dress, my mom took me to the tailor, and she usually made kabayas, but I said I wanted a dress, a princess dress. And she said, what's a puff sleeve? So I had to draw it and I had to explain it and hold the fabric. And so I'd already had conversations and made little rough drawings from my early childhood to be able to share ideas and get them across. And so that part was quite comfortable and enjoyable, to just like ngobrol on site and be like, I mean, I literally would stand, like if we're designing something in the room, and I'd be like, no, the railing needs to go like this, not like this. It's not like ombak di laut yang, like,
Yeah.
I would just describe things. And also I've got like in our team, we've got people who can draw really well, so we can go back and take the time to draw it and then pass that over. Or I take out the iPhone, you take a picture, and then you just jot it on the screen, and you're like this. Sometimes that's the most visceral thing. Sometimes that's much better. Or just taking a stick and tying it up, and then like twist it, curving it a bit, and say, do that. Whatever gets it done. Sometimes the beautiful, perfect drawing in the studio, it isn't even the most efficient way to do it. So you just have to figure out how you can be understood with the different kinds of people.
Yeah.
Because we've got like really like sophisticated, modern, educated people, and sometimes that gets in the way of the natural process of getting something made. And sometimes you've got really talented craftspeople, but they don't understand the technicalities, and so they're missing something about the mechanism practicality. So you've got to supplement and complement. We all have to complement each other. Sometimes you've got like the best intentions and the best vision, but your client in a different language from a different culture, like just doesn't have the patience to wait and listen to you.
Yeah.
So I've got to jump in there and try to like connect these dots. So a lot of the time I'm just trying to be the glue.
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting with craft, right? Because like our educated mindset, like in what we learn in university or in college, it doesn't really work in the field, especially with the drawings and our idea of design. It has to adapt with the technicalities in the during the process of the making. And
So, yeah,
always, I think it's always a collaboration, right?
it
Between
has to be. It
yeah,
has to be. And sometimes honestly I get frustrated. I'm like, there's probably a way that people normally do this professionally and I just don't know what it is. And then other times I hear from architects or designers or engineers and they say, listen, if you knew how it's normally done, you never would have thought of doing it this way. Or like you just wouldn't have thought this was possible. And now you've proven that it's possible. And so together in the team, we have the right balance of people who have certain kinds of amazing training and skill in certain kinds of technologies, certain kinds of hands-on experience over our time together, with certain materials, especially with bamboo. And at the end of the day, what we all learn from bamboo is that we have to be flexible and we have to embrace our own imperfections and uniqueness so that we can all weave together to make something strong and beautiful and unique.
exactly like a bamboo characteristic.
We're just learning from bamboo as we go.
Yeah, that's right. I always say like in City Dapper, we always collaborate with the craftsmen because that's their design too. I only make uh, the general shape, but the design, the details ends up with the craftsman experience to make it.
Sometimes it's important to stop drawing and go sit with the craftsman and say, how should we do this?
Yeah, that's right. I agree. Yeah, and that's only understood. Maybe that can be well understood by people who deals with craftsmen every day, right? Very intense.
Yeah. And
And
most professions, many design professions that make things around the world don't even get the chance to have that conversation or do that. Or maybe once a year they make a trip to the place um, where their work is produced and they get to have that conversation. But we're so lucky to be in such close contact.
because we have been talking about the building process, I'm also interested to curious about the process of making the arcs because I read that you involve like a team of structural engineering and you make 3D modeling and other methods. Can you share us about the process? I think it's unique because bamboo, like we have talked, it's very close to. It's almost like very handy, and we usually don't really care about the science engineering side of it. But now you involve a structural engineer. Can you share about the process?
So the arc is essentially a giant bamboo basket. And the way that it works is as a surface, which is very different from most buildings that work. They work in compression. They work with a series of structural pieces and the roof hangs on it. So with the arc, which was conceived by one of the original bamboo building masters in the world, who originally also helped us with Green School, named Jorg Stam. He came up with the idea of several arches that would lean against each other to create the structure of a building. And then working with Neil Thomas of Atelier One in England, they also engineered the design of Gardens by the Bay in Singapore.
Oh,
They know how to make things very strong and also very light at the same time. So the arches that you see in the arc, just by themselves, they're not really strong enough to hold up the roof.
yeah.
So by the detailed design of the roof and the way that it interconnects, it becomes a surface that ties the whole building together. And the curves that you see are not there for the sake of making a beautiful curving roof. Every curve is intentional and doing work to add strength, because a doubly curving surface is a very, very strong thing that you see show up in nature. And so the way that the curves and the form and the height and the shape of the arch, all of those things are much more driven by the engineer's specification for strength. And as designers, we had to step back and not be attached to the proportion, to the height. We needed to maintain the space necessary for sports, so the functionality of the building would be good. But it was really a process of understanding how to make it as light and as strong as it could be. And so the thing that it actually most resembles is the human rib cage, because we have ribs that are like these arches. And what makes our rib cage strong and flexible is the way that the muscles and fascia and skin work to hold it all together. So that's why the building, aside from just feeling really special and comfortable when you see it and walk into it, also is kind of an engineering marvel, and a new way of thinking about how to create strength in a building.
And you have to interconnect it, the bamboo poles, because it's not long enough, right? And you have to make sure
Oh gosh.
The right curve, the right length of the bamboo so that they can connect each other.
So if you can imagine how many pieces of how many different poles of bamboo are in every arch, which takes segments with the right diameter from many different poles and connect them with a very careful engineer specified connection detail to make each of those arches. And then in every arch, there are 6 arches bundled together.
Yeah, I think it looks very simple. It looks very it's not like very complicated like your other works, but at the same time, I know it must be very difficult to build, and very, yeah, it needs a lot of calculation, right calculation, and
Yeah,
being very precise in bamboo working. I think it's very
yeah.
special. It's what
I hope nobody tries to replicate it, because every detail of how many bolts at what angle and what connection detail, everything, we had to stop and check back and forth and do tests with the engineer to get it just right.
Oh yeah,
But that building will last for a very long time.
I got goosebumps. It's very amazing, and yeah, you've got an award because of this work, right?
Yeah, Architecture Master Prize was, I think, chose it as the first place. The Zine Awards also acknowledged it, and just a lot of attention and press. And I think that what's great about that is that it's not an intellectual building. It's not just, oh, the amazing story of how the design thought and the engineering came together. It's also just like you see it and it feels like, wow, it feels like you want to be there. And also has this like complex and interesting journey of how it was created. It's a good balance of both.
Yeah, it's the perfect combination of uh, engineering, arts, craftsmanship, and also social design too, and environmentally impactful too. And yeah, I can't wait to be there, to be inside the building in the middle of it, and uh, pay attention to every details of the building. I hope I can
Come
come.
visit.
Yeah, I hope I can visit this year.
Well, Green School has tours a few times a week, so anyone who's watching can check their website and see when the tours are, so you can get a glimpse inside yourself. And it's a really cool thing to be able to see.
I see you are very passionate about this material, about your work, and you have created a huge legacy in Bali and the bamboo architectural field. Why did you first the very beginning, why did you choose bamboo? Like it's very in Indonesia, it is seen as a poor man's material. But why did you choose bamboo to make such beautiful buildings and yeah, beautiful artwork, I guess.
I'd say I didn't choose bamboo, it chose me. I had considered briefly in during art school that, oh, it would be amazing to, maybe if I was making things, I was designer and went to art school, and it's like, if I was making things in the world, what would be a really worthwhile thing to make, a lasting thing to make? But oh, a building, it'd be amazing to build. Maybe I should be an architect. And very quickly, some young architects who I met talked me out of it. They said it was extremely difficult and boring profession, and you never got to do anything fun. So I was like, okay, I won't study architecture. But when I saw what was happening in Bali at the Green School, which my dad and stepmom had founded and they were building, and I was just home for a visit wondering what I should do with my life next, because I was working in fashion at the time. And I saw what they were doing. I just needed to help, needed to be a part of it. So I'm really only involved in making buildings. I'm only involved in architecture because of bamboo, because of its beauty and its sustainability. And it really made me feel like it's possible to create big lasting things in the world in a way that's responsible, in a way that can even do good, rather than just using up resources and adding things to the world that make more of a mess.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Bamboo is very amazing. It's not only beautiful in the visually, beautiful visually, but it also gives a lot of impact to its environment and its surrounding people around it. Especially in Indonesia, it is very deeply connected to our culture. I read that you grew up in US and Canada, and you went to art school, and I see that it affects your work too. Can you tell us how it influenced the experience, your journey influenced your works?
I grew up in Bali from when I was a baby, but I'm Canadian, and my parents, like many Canadians, I think they're just a few generations from having their families immigrate themselves. So within our families, there's these stories and tales that influence us. And my mother, she just really wanted to explore the world. So together with my dad, they went traveling and they fell in love with Bali back in 1975.
Oh.
So from when I was a baby, I grew up on the edge of Ubud, overlooking the Champuan Valley with rice fields in my backyard. And I really got to have a little bit of a dream world there. When I was 9, I got to sketch my own house, and my mother really built it just for my own bedroom and my brother's bedroom. And then by the time I was 14, I wanted to see more of the world, and I needed to go off to school. And so I went to boarding school in America, in the US, and then to university. And then I stayed and worked there until I was 28. So I spent the first half of my life here, and then the next half of my life in the US. But I just didn't see things happening in the US in a creative field that matched the way that I wanted the future to be. I didn't see how I could make things and feel good about them. I didn't see how to do that. And in the meantime, my dad and stepmom were building the green school, and that just did look like a direction towards just a beautiful green future. So I came home and had the chance to be part of that.
Yeah, and does your patient experience has influence in your works, in your architectural works?
Yeah, I didn't even think about it until I was preparing the TED Talk a few years after several years of working with bamboo. I was preparing the TED Talk And I was like, what should I talk about? So maybe you can pull on a story from your childhood. And I was like, actually, I made a bamboo building before. I can remember my bedroom. I made that. And it was an upside down bamboo basket. Because my mom must have been crazy. She took my idea seriously, and she got it when she was planning our house. She said, what do you want your part of the house to look like? And she helped realize it. That's a very unusual thing for a parent to do. I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, and it's really hard to imagine saying, what do you want to build, and actually taking it seriously and putting money into it. Wow.
As a child, seeing your imagination being realized, I think it's very it has very huge impact. I mean, as a child, and your kid.
I thought it was completely normal. I just
Oh,
totally
wow.
took it for granted.
Yeah. Okay, that's amazing because especially in Indonesia, I mean in our Eastern Indonesian culture, as a child, we usually only like we have to follow our parents' decision. We don't really have to we don't really have the right to make our own decision.
But
Especially,
you also do often have the responsibility of taking on family obligations and running like your parents' businesses
yeah, right.
and things like this, which I also share. I've had that responsibility.
That's true. That's true. I didn't see
So I
it
get
that way actually.
a bit of
But
East
yeah,
and a bit of West mixed in.
yeah, that's right. That's right. I just thought I just think about it. You have already a lot many achievements. You got many awards from your works, and you are also awarded by the RSA as a royal designer for industry.
Yeah, that's amazing. So our engineer, Neil Thomas, is part of the RSA, Atelier One in England.
Okay.
And he was just really excited about our work. So he nominated us, and we went through the process and we were chosen. So it's amazing.
Wow. Congratulations, by the way. I think that's quite an achievement. uh, but I'm also curious, do you have any failure? You must have.
Wow.
Do you mind sharing with us what is your failure in your career, and how did you overcome it?
When you're innovating this much, you're constantly you're constantly pushing the boundary of failure. You're constantly at risk of like disappointing of whether you've handled the communication well enough of explaining this completely new idea. And every project we've had obviously has been for a client. We're not just innovating with some sort of funding budget to be able to dream things up and see if they work. We're innovating with someone else's money at each stage, for a very personal like project, which is their own home or their own business that they're creating. So the responsibility of that has been an extremely like delicate and sensitive and difficult thing to handle. So very often we've had failures of communication. We've had like how do you handle the communication process through the whole journey to perfectly explain and anticipate costs and anticipate timings in order to have the best process for the project. Where you can't fail is in the structure. You have to deliver a structure that is safe and sound and will be so for decades.
Yeah.
So we've managed to navigate it. So sometimes the road is bumpy, sometimes the process is complicated or bumpy or emotional even, but we have managed to keep it innovative and on the cutting edge while being absolutely safe. If we've had any structural issues, they've shown up during the construction process, we've caught them, we've fixed them. We've never had any structural issues that show up after the project is complete.
How did you How did you
Well, we work with engineers and we have to overcompensate. If anything, we have to be accused of over-engineering, of overbuilding.
Okay.
Yeah. And some of the very earliest projects before we were engineering, before we were even formed as a company, there have been a few projects where we did later on have to come and add some things. But in the early days, in the in-house projects, not in the recent client projects, because you just can't, you know. So I'd say the failures are, you're always risking them. Otherwise, you're playing it too safe. If everything's going perfectly smoothly, you're not risking enough, you're not innovating enough, you're not trying enough. But you have to choose those directions very carefully, because there's certain areas where it's impossible to fail. And you've also had to be very sensitive with like budgets. We can't suddenly have a project that's like double the budget. It's not in the realm of reality for most people, for most clients. So you have to watch, where can you push? Where can you stretch? Where can you bend? Bamboo is a great example of that. Bamboo is flexible. It can bend in the wind, but if you push it too far, then it will crack and break. So you have to allow for flexibility. In fact, people come to us expecting us to be flexible, right? Expecting us to be innovative. Yeah, because that's the nature of the material. So you have to be ready for that. But you also have to have enough strength to stay strong and clear. This is as far as we can bend. And so how do you handle those communications perfectly? And how do you keep the balance of the team, keep the momentum, keep everyone in the process happy? It's not just about keeping the clients happy. How do you keep a good balance in the team and keep a good dynamic and and it's not always possible. And you always have to keep coming back to it. If there's a storm, the bamboo has to bend in the wind and gets buffeted around. How do you find it back to center? When we were lifting the arches of the ark into place, as we lifted them up with the crane, they deflected visibly. It looked kind of frightening because bamboo is so flexible. And then when we put them into place in the building, when they came to rest, they went back. So if you're flexible, if you can bend, all right, we can handle it. This is how far we can bend. But you've got to come back to rest and come back into place and find your center again. And that applies to every part of the process and everyone in the process.
Wow, that's very insightful. Very insightful. And I like it that you summarize the whole like the essence of your projects. Like you have to push the boundaries, you have to be you have to take the risk, but also you have to keep it flexible, to keep it safe. I think that's what us as innovators always afraid, right? Is it gonna fail? Are we gonna make money out of it? Are we gonna make the worst of it? Are we gonna go bankrupt because of this innovation? Like we have to take risk unless we won't make any innovations at all and just stay safe, like business as usual.
Yeah, and you can't keep everyone happy at the same time somehow. And so you can't always be liked by everyone, and you have to balance it all.
That's the courage.
Because
and you put it back into the bamboo philosophy. That's very deep. That's what we want to learn from this campaign too. Thank you very much, Elora. The time's already up. I think it's already more than 30 minutes. Thank you for your time to talk with me in this Zoom meeting. I really appreciate it. I hope this can give impact to our audience and inspire many people. Thank you very much.
I hope so too. It's so exciting to be here, and I love your work. And it's just beautiful the way that bamboo can have so many expressions in the world on so many scales, from the tiniest thing to the biggest building. And
that's very true.
It's just beautiful to see.